In this lesson, you will learn to create methods on objects and utilize the this keyword. So in this lesson, we are going to explore array properties and methods. A method is an action that an object is able to perform, usually on or related to data within that object. You can think of a method as a function that is a value in an object's key value pair. And we've actually seen these before. For example, when calling math.pow2, 2, we are actually referencing a function that is assigned to the key pow on that math object. Since pow is a method in the math object, math.pow22 is a very valid function. But without math, pow22 would throw a reference error. Primitive data types and other data types have built-in method functionality as well. These extend the functionality of the primitive data types and allow us to gather information about them or manipulate them in some way. .pop, for example, is a method that acts on the array data type. Both properties and methods can be accessed using dot notation, where we give the name of the variable, a dot, and then the name of the property or the method. Properties allow us to access data from a data type. So there are many different types of properties on every data type that will give you information about that specific object. One example is the length property of a string. It will give us the length of a string, as in how many characters are in the string, including spaces. For example, quotes string.length would return 6, string. Methods, on the other hand, allow us to manipulate a data type. And methods are different from properties in that they need to have parentheses on the end when we call them. And it's important to note that methods are just functions, and in order to invoke a function, you use parentheses. The parentheses don't make it a method, in other words. So another method we've seen is math.random, parentheses, which acts on the numbers 0 and 1 and pulls a random float from between those two integers. JavaScript has a number of built-in objects for us to use. These global objects extend the functionality of the language, and we've already seen and have already been using the console object and its method log. Another one of these objects is math. Math has a number of methods on it, just like console has log. In addition, some of our data types, like arrays, also have built-in methods. So .push and .pop, for example, manipulate the data in the array. There's no purpose in trying to memorize all of these properties and methods associated with primitive and built-in data types. Instead, we want you to focus on understanding how they work and get comfortable with their common use cases. In addition to built-in methods, we can create our own methods inside of objects. We do this by setting a key to a function name and the value to a function. So that might look something like this. Const new object equals curly braces. Our key might be say hi method, and our value would be a function. Then when we called new object dot say hi method, it would return hi everyone, which is what we told our function to do. Just like other times we call methods, we will call this method using dot notation and trailing parentheses. .length, .push, .pop are all methods created this way. Note that we can call a method with arguments just as we would a normal function. So sometimes we want to iterate over each key value pair within our object. With arrays, we used a standard loop and an index number variable. Objects do not contain numbered indices, so the standard loop will not work for objects. JavaScript actually has a second type of loop built in called the for-in loop. And the syntax for the for-in loop is similar but slightly different from our for loop. And thankfully, it's a bit more intuitive. After the for keyword, in parentheses, we will declare a variable, so let variable name, use the keyword in, and then state the name of the object. This will loop over each key in the object and finish when all of the keys have been iterated over. We can use this key and bracket notation in our for loop to access the value associated with that key. Objects also have a self-referential keyword that may be applied in each object called this. When it's called inside an object, it is referencing to that very object. This can be used to access other keys in the same object, and it's especially useful when we're creating methods. If we have, for example, our user object with the method user says hi, but we wanted to return the username plus the phrase says hi, we could use the self-referential this to reference the username within our function. So now user says hi might return the string Dan Frainer says hi. And a quick note, whether you have prior programming experience or not, the this keyword can be one of the more difficult topics in JavaScript. We're using it very basically here, but the topic gets much more complex very soon. Not to worry though, as with everything, we'll work through these together. So now let's return to our Great White Shark example. Now it's time for the we do, where we get to practice these skills together. You should be coding along with me during this portion of the video. Returning to our Great White Shark example, an organism's scientific name is their genus plus their species with a space in between. While we could add a property called scientific name and assign it to the value Charcharodon charcharias, we don't want to do that because it would create redundancies in our code. Any changes to the genus or the species would also require that we manually change the scientific name property, which isn't very dry. We're repeating ourselves. Creating this method is actually really similar to creating the properties. We will name our function with get scientific name, and then we'll tell JavaScript that this is going to be a function. Then inside our curly braces, we can write a function just like we've done in previous lessons. The body of the function is going to include a reference to the genus and the species, which we can create using the this keyword, referencing the local myGenus and the local mySpecies. We'll create an equation where scientific name equals this dot myGenus plus a space plus this dot mySpecies. The this just means we're referencing the myGenus inside this object and the mySpecies inside this object. Then we'll return scientific name. Now that we have this method set up inside of our object, we could call Great White Shark dot get scientific name, and it should return the scientific name of a great white shark. And it returns Charcharodon charcharias, which is exactly what we expected. In this lesson, we learned what objects are and the many ways to access values, call methods, and assign values. Many of these techniques looked very familiar, as if we had used them in virtually every aspect of our learning so far. There's a pattern here, and that's because just about everything in JavaScript is an object. Arrays are objects with numerical keys, strings are objects under the hood with built-in methods, functions are actually objects with their own special properties too. The entire JavaScript runtime is an object. It's a window in a browser or global in Node.js. The more you work with JavaScript, the more this will start to make sense to you. Just remember, almost everything is an object. The only exceptions to this rule are primitive data types like false, true, undefined, etc. So now head off, work through this tutorial, read through the materials below, and attempt the properties and methods challenge on your own.